Good morning, Tina Tubers. Today is Monday, the 17th of October. Every day that I click the calendar, I can't believe it. So we have another traffic jam. Wowzer, somebody really went, oh my God, nasty. I always pray for the people who are involved in an accident, as well as the EMS drivers. Let them get there safe. Let them do what they need to do in the most expedient fashion they can get there safely and help whoever needs help. And then I always say a prayer for the family of the accident victim. I hate saying victim, but what else do you call them? Hopefully survivor. Okay, that's a really long episode there, but today I told you about my sweet friend Candy, real name Laura, who I met in junior high when I was 13. And I just have always loved her from that time on. She has been nothing but a faithful, supportive, wonderful friend. So let me give you a few stories. I'm going to throw in some pictures. And this is a birthday video for her, as her birthday is next week. And of course, she's turning 70, and she's the most fit human I've ever known. But she has worked at it, stayed with it, and exercise has been a part of her life since I've known her. So the first thing I remember about her with exercise is she was on the swim team. Candy was, I think, 5'11" or 5'10". She might be 5'10", 5'11". And I was, at the time in 7th grade, probably 5 feet. And she was a big girl, and she was absolutely beautiful. She had the Doris Day hairdo, the same color, the most gorgeous blonde color, natural, like almost like platinum blonde, not this color. I can't even explain it. It's gorgeous. So anyway, I would stay overnight at her house. She would spend the night at my house. However, my parents had just gotten divorced 2 years prior, and so her mom and dad were very cautious and did not want her coming to my home because of a single mother and no father. So the one time they did let her come over, we were practicing cheerleading, and she fell the wrong way and broke her leg. And boy, were her parents upset. You know, it's an accident, and I think it just parents get upset because of fear, because of angst, all of that. So anyway, that didn't go over well. But I always thought she was the most beautiful girl. She had such poise to be so tall, to carry herself as beautifully as she carried herself was amazing, and at such a young age. But I really think that sports, that swimming, she did the breaststroke, and she just, and her tan was gorgeous. She just looks Hollywood. So as we grow up and we graduate, she goes on to Western. I go there a few times to see her. We don't get to stay in touch because I went off to Europe, came back and worked. She was in college. She graduated from college, and I moved to Florida. But I would always get to see her. And she, right before I left, right after we graduated, I would say I was maybe 20. Right before I moved to Florida, in the summer, I just remember going to this club with her. And we went on Sunday nights, and that's when Chicago was really big, their songs. Wish I could play songs on here and not get kabashed. But anyway, I just remember, well, first let's go back to one story. We would go downtown shopping and get on the bus and go to Hudson's in downtown Detroit. We would dress up. That's when you dressed up. You just dressed up when you went out to places. And we ate at the Top of the Flame. If any of you know Detroit, you know the Top of the Flame. Very fancy. Well, I just felt so important. And God bless my mother, single mom. We were definitely on the wrong side of the tracks. We weren't low rent. We were just middle class. Candy was above that. So, my mom, when she knew I was going to go downtown, and I always went with Candy, pretty much always with Candy. Sometimes we went with a bunch of girls and laughed and carried on. But when Candy and I would go, we would dress up, we would shop, eat at the Top of the Flame. My mother always gave me money. And back then, $20 was a lot. Was a lot. And she would always say, go into my jewelry box. And I think I've shown a picture. Not a jewelry box, it was a hosiery box. It was always in her top drawer. And every time I went in there was a $20 bill. She said, I never wanted you to go there and feel like you couldn't afford to do what you needed to do. I never wanted you to feel like less than, and I certainly didn't want you to feel like you had to maybe shoplift. Of course, with my group, she didn't have to worry about that. One day we were shopping downtown and we went into a shoe store. Maybe this was in the 8th or 9th grade. And I saw a shoe, she saw a shoe. And she said, I would like to see this in a size 10. And I said, I'd like to see it in a size 5. And he looks at us, goes, what do you do, Mutt and Jeff? And that was so horrible. And you can imagine being our ages and what that did to her. But let me tell you, it didn't stop her. She was offended, but she went on. And she never enjoyed high school. And now I get it. She enjoyed the girls, but the guys were little runts. You know, guys don't grow up until they're usually, not many of them, until they're usually in college. But they were young. I mean, they'd come up to her breast. And so when she went to the prom, of course, she dated an older guy. He was in college, I think, and she was just beautiful. And so when we went to this club, years later, 20 years old, 21, we would go to this club on Sunday nights, and I'm not lying, when she walked in, the guys acted like idiots, okay? They would act like idiots. And I want to say drooling, they weren't drooling, but a couple of them sometimes would try to like grab onto her leg or something. Like they were like, I don't know, it was just weird. It was weird how they acted. And let me tell you, she never was offensive to them. She was very, how do I say, she was gentle and she had tact. And she would smile and say, thank you, or no thank you, but always kind. And everyone said, why do you go with her? Like, aren't you nervous? Like, she's so beautiful, blah, blah, blah. I go, I get the leftovers. There's always a bunch of them trailing right along. So I said, the leftovers, let me tell you, weren't bad. So it was always, I always enjoyed being around her, and she was the epitome of class, and she loved to party, and I always had the most exciting experiences with her. And as I told you, she stayed in Michigan for quite a while, and she was first she was a drug rep for like Abbott, medical, something like that. She would be a drug rep to the physicians. And then she went up the ladder and she sold penile implants and breast implants to surgeons. And I'm sure she had no problem getting into the office. She's gorgeous. I'm sure the front desk didn't like her, but the doctor certainly must have loved. But not only was she beautiful, but she's very smart and intelligent, and she could sit down with a doctor and have no problem discussing the products. So, and coming from a medical background, and I worked in an office at the front desk, and then I was also in management. I knew what it was like, that she had to get the food and the da-da-da to get herself in the door. And, you know, you always had to, I said, prostitute yourself to get into the doctor's office to sell your products. And so she made good money, and she has always worked hard. She worked as a bartender all the way through college, supported herself through college, put herself through college. Just amazing. Okay, she did it on her own, and she wouldn't quit working because she had plans. And so anyway, let me tell you, she's just amazing. So I would go to, then she was in Chicago for a while, and I went there a couple times to see her. Ended up on somebody's yacht. It was always an experience. And one of the highlights, and I've mentioned this before, was when she invited me to the Kentucky Derby. And I'm like, oh my God. And I was working in singles, so my God bless my mother. She lived life through me. She said, you're going, I'll pay for your ticket. And Candy said, just get here and everything else is taken care of. So of course, it wasn't like we were on the infield. We had box seats. So you dressed up, and you wore the hat and stuff like that. So that was an experience. I had a blast. I borrowed the suitcases. I borrowed some clothes. They put my luggage in the wrong car. Then we found it. Oh my God, it was just weird. So anyway, I'm in Kentucky, and they paged me, and she said, just come to the Kentucky Derby, because there's races all through the week before Saturday, the big day. And she said, just come to Churchill Downs, we'll meet you at the front gate. So here I am, like Heidi with my suitcase, standing in front of Churchill Downs. It was so surreal. And so they throw my suitcase in the car, and up we go, and it was just grandiose. It's just grandiose. And so in the box seats, do you guys know, some of you might know Jack Klugman. He was in one of the seats around us. I don't want to say next to us. It could have been next to us, I'm not sure. But he had a horse called Excitable Lady. So he had these banners made, and they said Excitable Lady is exciting. So he passed them out to everybody. We wore them on our butt, on the back of us. We had a blast. And then to the right of us was Muhammad Ali and all of his security. And it was just the most gorgeous weather. And all of these people, we stayed in this mansion. I don't know. I swear I don't know all of them, but it was 3 days of incredibleness. And she even had me hooked up with a model. I think he modeled either champagne or I don't know what, some kind of booze, vodka maybe, but he was in some of the big magazines. And so I didn't know that, okay? I didn't see his pictures. I didn't know any of that stuff, but he was beautiful. So I'm like, wow. Well, I didn't like him. Yeah, he was weird, and I don't know, he was just too fast for me. Of course, he wanted to get in your pants and all that the first night, and I'm like, no. I don't care how beautiful you are. I gotta go slow. So that's okay. I don't remember anything else, but I just remember the partying and the da-da-da. I just can't even explain it. And Candy, I will always thank you for that experience. This was a really exciting night, and I'm so glad I had the date but it says the Penthouse Viva Leisure Club harness race. And our friend Sally Betcher came in first. But if you look down there, Tina Irvin came in third. It was just a real harness race, and Candy was the one that got us all involved, as always. But Candy was tight, living in Chicago. She met James Bond, listen to me, Sean Connery. He was out there shooting Untouchables, and so she got to know him and his entourage. And it was really, she always met, and she goes out to Hawaii, I think, and met George Hamilton. So she always was in that kind of in crowd. Then she met her husband, Chuck, and he was an airline pilot for Delta. And she married late. Like, her and I were the last of the ones to get married. I was the very last, okay? I think she was in her early 40s, maybe late 30s when she got married. Probably late 30s, I don't remember. I didn't get to go, but I'll find a picture, see if I can insert them here. But she was out in California at the time. And then they moved to Park City, Utah. And she was a skier. Now, let me tell you, this girl golfs, snow skis, snowboards, swims, plays tennis. And I'm not lying, most of the time she plays with men, because that's how competitive and how good she is at her sports. And it amazes me. And so I'm a slug, and so when she'd come visit, she goes, I gotta exercise or I'm gonna go crazy. I'm like, sorry. So she would play tennis. I would go watch her. And but to this day, and then I went out to see her in Utah. And that was so sad, because she had such an experience for me. And I got either strep throat or something the second day. And it was for my birthday, so she had all these plans, and I couldn't do hardly anything. Also, one of her favorite people there, and one of her neighbors, was the champagne lady on Lawrence Wilk, and her name was Norma. I can't remember her last name. Maybe I'll think of it. We went to her home and visited her, and she was so gracious. But Candy owned a coffee shop. That's what she wanted to do. That was her dream, was to own a coffee sandwich shop. And she did that for a couple of years. And so when I went, it was, I think, her first year in there. And she had met Norma and her husband through that. And she was just a delightful lady, signed a copy of her book, and also signed a painting. She was a painter. And just so impressive. But I went up in the mountains with Candy, and I can't believe I did it, but I did it. And so I went out there a couple times, and then she moved to Arizona with her husband, and Sally and I went out there. I think I've been out there a couple times, and it's a beautiful home there in Scottsdale. The pictures I'll show you. But I have not been to her home in Flagstaff. She goes there during the summer months to get out of the heat. And she's a dog lover. They never had children, but I think they've been married for, I don't know. I really don't know. 30 years? I really don't know. But they have such a nice life, and she's a big entertainer. And like I said before, a gourmet cook. And so it's always a treat when you go see her, because she puts on the finest meals, and it's just so entertaining. Our 20th reunion, and she flew into Vegas to meet me for my 40th birthday, and she came to Florida to visit me. So Candy, happy birthday to one of my bestest friends. Thank you for your support, your kindness, your love, your generosity over the years. Wish I was closer in miles, but you're here in my heart, always. So, love to you. Mwah! Happiest of birthdays. And 70. And I'm sure you're cooking it. I know you're playing golf still. I know you're playing pickleball. You're doing it all. You're playing tennis. So, God bless you. I love you. See ya. I'm going to close the video for today. Remember, be good to yourself, be good to others, and God will bless your efforts. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.